to our webinar on the brand advantage. Super excited to have Dani here to talk to us about how you can build your agency's unfair edge in 2025. This is really timely because most of you are probably going through budgeting for 2025. You're going through strategy for 2025. So there's no better time to, start thinking about your brand strategy than now and hopefully incorporate it into your 2025 planning. If you're new to Agency Revolution, I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of what we do and who we are. We handle insurance marketing for agencies and brokers. So we help you create connections, attract clients, build relationships, and grow revenue using our website and marketing automation tools. That's the only sales pitch I've got for you today. So, Dani, um, other than just introducing myself. But that's not really a sales pitch. You just get to know me. So I'm Monika Baraket. I am VP of Operations at Agency Revolution, and I handle client and marketing operations here. And in the photo is my family. That's Ken, Matt, and Lucas in the purple hat. And this is us at Knoebels. I don't know if any of you know Pennsylvania well and know Knoebels, but it's a old time park where you don't have to pay for parking and there is no admission and you just go on rides using tickets, but it's super family friendly and super fun. And this is our favorite ride. It's a train ride that goes around in a circle and you get to see squirrels eating corn on sticks. So this was one of their fall events and it was really hot. So that's why we're all wearing summer gear. But anyways, that's the family.
So fun. Is that in Pennsylvania?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it's Elysburg. It's just somewhere in the center of Pennsylvania. It's
Yeah.
very much not near anything major. So I think maybe Harrisburg might be the next closest thing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. And I'm Dani Kimble. I am a brand strategist with Azelie Studio, which is a company that I own, and I've been in the independent insurance industry, I should say, for the past 8, 9 years now. But I started out inside an independent insurance agency as a marketer and a branding, getting into more of the branding work there. And so now I have a brand strategy firm. This is my family, or my kids. My husband's not in here, but my kids are here. Also at the park, also at a park, right? Which is where half of my life is spent with all these little
I
ones.
am sure because you now have five also.
Yes, so I am pregnant with our fifth. So if I sound a little winded through this presentation today, I am very pregnant, so that is why. But I also I'm battling pneumonia right now. So I've got a bunch of cough drops next to me. I have my tea, and I do genuinely feel good. I wouldn't be pushing myself if I didn't feel good. So I do genuinely feel good. But know that if I'm have a cough attack or something like that happens throughout this presentation, I do apologize in advance. And we
You're
haven't
such a
planned
trooper.
what will
You're
happen.
such a trooper that Danny emailed me and she's like, I can still do this, but I
We
do have
got this.
pneumonia.
Yeah.
I got this. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. And
Yeah.
I'm glad you feel good enough to do
Yes,
it.
I do. I do feel good. I'm on antibiotics now. I think we're on the mend, so we're good.
Awesome.
Okay, so today, yeah, we're talking all about branding, brand strategy, and we're going to lean into, we're going to focus on first building a brand strategy and then leaning into how we take that strategy into action or execution through something like a marketing plan. So I'm gonna be sharing a template with you all too at the end of this presentation that you'll be able to download and access so that you can move forward with putting a plan together for 2025. And then hopefully we have some time for questions for open discussion, but feel free to also drop any questions in the chat. And I know Monika and I will be watching that as we jump in. Now, I will say this presentation is very tactical, which I struggle when I go super tactical to also make it entertaining. And so when I do the theory route, it's a little more story based. And when I do the tactical route, I think you get way more from it. But it's like, I just like kind of go through the action items. So I'm hoping it doesn't bore you today, but I do hope you leave with a lot of information to build your strategic brand and marketing plan for 2025. That's the goal here. And to do it in less than an hour is also the goal. So we're going to jump right in.
And I actually love that, Dani, because I think a lot of times you walk away from a webinar or a conference and it's so theoretical, and philosophical that you're kind of like, that's great. Like I got excited, but then I also don't know what to do next.
Yes.
So you get the version where you know what to do next.
Yes,
So,
and I think that's really common when you're talking in general about strategy too, is
mhm,
strategy can be a real theoretical topic. And so I'm like, how can I want to make sure that people walk away with something that they can actually execute on. So that's what we're
absolutely.
going to do. But before we jump into just strategy talk, I want to talk about like what actually is a brand and get clear on the definition of brand, because oftentimes agencies will reach out to me and say, hey, we're looking to rebrand or we need a new logo. They immediately start talking about logos, fonts, colors, their website design, their sales deck. And there's nothing wrong, I'd say, with wanting your brand to look good, to be polished and professional, but we all know, if you're, let's just say a house, let's use houses as an example or metaphor. If your house has foundation issues and cracks in the walls, then a fresh coat of paint isn't going to solve the problem. Or let's say if you own a restaurant and maybe you serve bad food or the customer service is poor, well, then like a new modern look to the menu isn't really going to bring in new business and drive results for your company. And so the same goes for your insurance brand. So when agencies come to me looking for logos and colors, oftentimes, and this is not all the time, but oftentimes what they really need first, and they call it brand, but oftentimes what they really need is more of a solid brand foundation, a clear positioning in the market, a way to really stand out and create, meaningful difference that matters to their clients, and a strategy essentially that really kind of drives the agency growth or the business growth. And then once we kind of build that piece in place, lay the foundation, make sure it's strong, the messaging, the positioning, the point of view, the story, everything, then a refresh on brand identity and design might be necessary, might be needed to help really how I look at logos, fonts, colors, website, sales decks, all of the collateral materials, and the design aspect is all of those materials are important. They help communicate some of the foundational elements that we've built into the brand. And so that's the purpose of really good polished design, is that it's communicating the brand meaning, the brand foundation, who you are, your vision, what you're about. So that's what brand really is. It's not just how you look, but what you really mean to your clients.
And you can't, Dani, if I could just jump in, you can't like start in the middle or just do one piece of it. Little quick story. I worked for a financial firm way, way back in the old days. And, one day my leader came in and he's like, hey, we're going to start calling all of our customers guests because they wanted to be like Disney.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no strategy. There was really no work put behind like the why and
Right.
how does that all play into the bigger picture. It was just like from now on, as they walk in, they're our guest. And it obviously failed because just calling someone your guest doesn't make you Disney-like,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
You're kind of missing the whole big picture. So just wanted to throw that in there that like you can't just do one little piece. Like you really do have to start at the beginning and work your way down.
Yes. Yes, of course. And like, you're kind of speaking to the customer journey there and like the
Hmm.
customer interactions you have within the customer journey, which is all part of that brand foundation build, right? And if you're only focusing on that little piece,
Yep.
one of the biggest struggles or hurdles is getting the internal team to buy into the vision and to buy into the strategy and to buy into the foundation. Well, here's a perfect example of you being like, wait, what? Like you're asking me to call our customers guests, but every other element of our brand doesn't align with that. This doesn't feel right to me as an internal team member. And so, how do you get your team to rally around your strategy and your vision? All comes down to the way that is you're communicating it from beginning to end. So, thanks for sharing that story. That's an
Yeah,
interesting
absolutely.
little piece. So, yes, so when many are associating with logos, fonts, colors, design, all of that, it's only really a matter of time, really, before they realize that those items alone aren't moving the needle on revenue for their business, and we're not really getting to that root problem or issue. So, which causes this perception of brand to be fluffy, right? And non-revenue driving topic. And so it's likely not a design issue we need to solve. It's a focus on building a strategic brand foundation. That's what we're going to be talking about a lot today. And using brand design elements, which are very important, using those design elements to help communicate that brand strategy. Okay. So common perception of the brand is the way we look, but the actual meaning of brand, I define it this way. I define it as a brand is the meaning people attach to your business. Now, some refer to it maybe as your reputation in the market. I like that definition as well, or the gut feeling that people have when they hear about your brand. That's really what we're we're looking to intentionally create a meaning or a reputation or this gut feeling that people will attach to our business. And we're not necessarily in complete control over how they're feeling about our brand, but we can make intentional strategic decisions and choices that help us get closer to that.
And
So
emotion probably, right, is wrapped into that.
huge.
Like the emotion that you feel when you think of a brand, right?
Of
It kind of
course.
ties into those other points you mentioned.
Yeah, and when I look at like the Apple logo, I'm an Apple fan. I'm on Apple everything right now. I got my phone, my computer, everything, my keyboard, the mouse, the wireless mouse. And so I'm an Apple fan. When I see the emblem, I associate meaning to that. I'm not looking at an apple with a bite mark in it. I actually have like emotional connection to the meaning behind that logo. So, yeah, emotion plays a huge part in it. Okay, so how do we translate this definition of brand into value? Because that's really what the business is after is how do we create almost this value exchange system like all of our businesses are built for that delivers value to our ideal clients and then returns value, typically a monetary value, right, to the business in exchange. And most start here at that bottom left corner, right? Just maybe another agency, another insurance agency competing on price, fighting for every quote. But as you begin to create vision for your agency, as you begin to get to know the type of agency you want to become, as you build meaning to your brand, as you become known for maybe something a little bit more specific and valuable, interesting things start to happen. And we see this across agencies across the nation. Your businesses start to attract better clients. You stop competing on price so much. Clients start coming to you specifically for your specialization or your expertise. And then, I'd say here's where it gets really powerful is towards the top. Once you're recognized as the go-to firm in your area or your niche, growth becomes so much easier. Your reputation really does like a lot of the heavy lifting. Referrals flow more freely, more naturally. You can charge premium rates because clients understand that unique value that you offer, that you deliver. So basically, I put it on this chart because I feel like the clearer and more distinctive that your brand becomes, the more valuable that your business becomes. And you're not just another commodity agency, you're this trusted advisor that a very unique, specific type of client seeks out and stays with. And that's the real power of the brand. It's not about looking good, it's about meaning something valuable to the right people. So we're aiming to be in this section here. Okay.
And that is so important, especially as an independent insurance agency, because you're
Mm-hmm.
competing with the big guys who have the fun commercials on TV, right? Because they have the money to spend
We're
to
going to be
do
talking about
those
that. Yeah.
commercials. So you
Yeah.
have to figure out a way you can separate yourself and compete in a different way. And another quick story, Dani, I ran into a client at a conference who was telling me their agency was actually struggling because they were just a generalist agency. We talked about this on the last webinar. But they began to niche down to trucking insurance.
Sure.
And their agency took off. They became an expert on trucking insurance, and now they're the sought out expert for
Mm-hmm.
trucking insurance across several states, and it really changed their business. So
That's a
exactly what you're
perfect
saying, the
example.
niching
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't always, and I'll probably share this a little bit later too. It doesn't always have to mean that you niche, right? But that's one angle that you can
Yeah.
differentiate yourself. That is one way that you can differentiate yourself for sure.
Mhm.
So, okay, so with that graph kind of in mind and this idea of like, okay, how do we become meaningfully valuable to our clients? Oh, What is that? Sorry about that.
That's
um,
that's the timer for your next cough drop.
yeah. It's funny, guys. These are all unwrapped, ready to go over here. Okay, so how do we get our ideal clients to attach meaningful value to our brand? And the answer isn't commodification, flooding the market with the same options that they can get anywhere else, really. The answer isn't being the cheapest option, because we all know, that's a race to the bottom. And the answer really isn't spending more on marketing and ads to like be at the front, because I mean, yes, that can work, but it's really hard, as you mentioned, Monica, to compete with the carriers who go direct, or like the bigger agencies who have bigger budgets than you, can outspend you and often rank higher. It's just really, it's a battle to constantly be competing on marketing budget. And so now I will say
Or
that,
on price for that matter, or on price,
yeah,
right?
or on price. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And if in and also what I've seen, just a trend is like, when you're competing on price, you also have this revolving door on the back end of they're
Mhm.
always price shopping. And so you're struggling with retention, and it's just constantly racing. So a lot of agencies do fall into one of those buckets though, and it's just a common business problem that we see across most independent insurance agencies. And in essence, it's kind of a reality for the industry. So long story short, right? I'm kind of like going on a tangent, but how do we get our ideal clients to attach meaningful value to our brand? It's by being strategic. It's by putting a brand strategy together and being strategic, getting crystal clear on your vision, and making intentional choices and also sacrifices about who you serve best, your ideal client, what problem you can solve better than anyone, how you deliver your products or services differently than every other independent insurance agency out there, and then how you communicate your differentiation or point of view to the market. And so when you map out these four areas, you start to really set yourself on track to becoming more meaningful to the right people, because you have defined who this person is. You become more meaningful to the right people in the right way, right? And so let me just break down and show you how this works. And we're going to use a brand that is not insurance related, but I'm fascinated. I constantly study bigger brands like Airbnb, for example, in this example. And when Airbnb launched, they were, in the tourism market, but they didn't necessarily compete with hotels. They kind of redefined travel accommodation in a way, and they found this like completely uncontested space in the market. And you think also too about the trust hurdle that they had to clear, getting people really like comfortable with staying in a stranger's home. Like that's a big trust hurdle to overcome. And so how did they do that? Is first by understanding exactly who they were targeting. So, well, all of these, right? Exactly who they were targeting, what problem they solved, how they were going to deliver their product or their service in the market, and then how they were going to communicate that to the market. So let's just unpack this a little bit here. So who they serve best. These were travelers that were looking for unique local experiences rather than hotel stays. They wanted to feel the local feel. And so that's specifically who they were speaking to. It wasn't the corporate travelers who were going to meetings across the country and just had their hotel rewards system set up. They weren't targeting that audience. They were targeting an audience that was looking for a unique adventure. What problem did they solve? They eliminated that disconnect between visiting a place and actually experiencing it like a local and feeling like a local. And they've continued to push that message through their communication, and also deliver on that promise through the product delivery, right? They turn almost everyone's space, if they're signing up for Airbnb, that space becomes bookable inventory, and it creates stays that you literally can't get anywhere else. It's like, even if you're going to the same city, even the same town, right? You're in a different home, you're in a different setting, you're in a different environment. It creates a whole different experience. And
I
so
mean, do you want to be in the tree house or an igloo, right? Like what
exactly,
floats your boat?
exactly.
On a river house or whatever. What is it called? It's a river. Yeah, I think it's a river house. I don't know.
Riverboat or
A
river,
river
yeah,
boat. That's it.
something. But yeah, it's so
Something
true. It's
something
like,
river and house and boat.
yeah, it's so true. There's so many
Yeah,
different
so
ways to
many
travel
options.
now through Airbnb, right?
Yeah.
And how they communicate it is they run this campaign called Belonging Anywhere. I think they're still running it too, where all of the marketing, a lot of the marketing, I should say, focuses around this storytelling aspect of making every stay really feel like home and also feel like an adventure. And I loved this ad here of, it's like a 5-star review of a Tokyo home, right? And it's a mother in her socks in somebody else's home, feeling like home, blowing bubbles, while her daughter, who's barefoot in the home, is just, it just says there's so much story to be told in that little picture.
Yeah,
They capture
for
it so
sure.
perfectly. And so that's how they communicate this like belonging anywhere campaign, belonging anywhere message. That's an example of how design can help communicate the brand strategy.
But you can't get to the end. You can't get to that graphic at the end until you do the work of the three other
Absolutely.
buckets first, because how would you know that that's the image, right?
Yes,
You've got
exactly.
to figure those things out first.
Yeah, and so so how all four elements really ladder up to this core brand idea of authentic local experiences. So it's
Mhm.
not just a place to stay, it's a way to really like experience, truly experience a destination, right? Like live like a local. And you're right, like that's how they get to the imagery and the design is through the strategic choices that they've made along the way.
Yeah.
So I could talk Airbnb strategy all day. Now that's just me, like almost like peeling back the layers of how I understand Airbnb. That's not me working inside Airbnb and knowing exactly what their strategy is. But when we look at it from a full picture, this is what I see. This is how strategic I see them being, which is very cool. But okay, so that's Airbnb. It's kind of hard to pair us next to Airbnb, right? So then let's get a little bit closer to home. We'll look at Geico. They serve direct buyers, right? Who want simple, quick insurance with like zero fluff. They just want simple, quick, direct, um, cheap even, or like they're price conscious a little bit.
Mhm.
And so what problem they solve, they eliminate this like complexity and the time waste of traditional insurance shopping. Everything is built around this 15-minute quote promise, and their website is super streamlined. They have a strong mobile app experience, direct to consumer model, cutting out that middleman, right? And so like that's how they deliver that product. That's how they achieve this 15-minute quote promise, and then also this 15% savings, right? They hammer home quick, easy savings through all of their content, and this little gecko here always stands out. We can see that gecko. Imagine if this flyer was just the gecko in the center of the page, you'd know exactly who to associate that gecko with. It would be Geico. Now, regardless of the feeling that you have for it, they are aiming to attract direct buyers who want simple, quick, convenient, fast insurance. They're not concerned too much about having maybe the right coverage, or they're not concerned too much about reading through the policy decks and like sitting on a one-to-one meeting and going through their personal coverage. Geico is not for me. So they're not marketing to me. But Geico is for, there is a target audience out there that wants that type of service and experience. And so they check the box on across all those four to serve that ideal client. And they communicate it. We see their ads, we see their commercials, we see, the gecko everywhere. And it's a consistent message of quick, easy, cheap, right? So if let's go into an example, and this is like a made up example that I hope connects more with the people on this call today. If we were niching down, so if we were specializing in maybe tech startups. Okay. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you don't need to niche or specialize to be strategic. There's many different angles you can approach strategy. One could be your involvement in culture and community, or let's separate those. One could be just culture, workplace culture, hiring the top talent, because and building this incredible workplace to work for. Another area could be community. Maybe you're a Main Street agency and you're highly invested in the community and you're showing up at all the events, and it's not just your logo that shows up on the basketball screen. You're actually like, your people are there and contributing, and their kids go to the school, and your agency is everywhere in that community. Those are strategic directions that you can head. It doesn't have to be a niche.
Or
For
just even
today's,
access to your team, Dani,
yeah,
right? Like when just the ease of doing business with your agency could be its own
sure.
angle.
Yeah. Customer service, customer experience. Now
Yeah.
you have to be like state of the art on that,
Yes.
because a lot
Yeah.
of people say like, "Oh, we have the best customer service, so
Mm.
let's make that the angle." Well, a
Yeah.
lot, I mean, that's also like the bar. Like you
Right.
should have good customer service. So, but
Yeah.
if you have elite customer service, that's a whole different kind of ball game. So,
Correct.
um, yeah,
You have to prove it for sure.
yeah, you definitely have to prove it.
Mhm.
But I chose the niche approach today because I think it's the easiest way to really leverage differentiation. And this could be across the agency, you focus on a niche, or it could be departmental, where maybe you have a set of sales professionals or producers who focus specifically in this niche. So first, so let's say insurance agency for tech startups. Sorry, I'm like losing my breath.
That's okay. We listen, we know you're very pregnant and we know you have pneumonia. So I mean, like, I think everyone on this call is
We're
giving you a
pushing.
pass for this. You're
um,
doing great. As Ali said, you're doing great.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so first, you're crystal clear about who you serve best if it's tech startup. That could be from seed stage through Series B. So it's not retail businesses, it's not large corporations. It's specifically, you're specifically focused on high growth tech startups. This focus then allows you to really solve a problem that is unique to tech startups. Okay, solve these problems better than anyone else in the insurance industry. If you're competing against an independent insurance agency who is a generalist and insures any business, right? Then they're not really speaking the language through the problems that they solve on the specific unique risks that they're aware of within the tech industry. So, handling complex insurance needs that come with like rapid scaling, that's a big topic in tech. Cyber insurance complexities, this idea of global expansion or like investor expectations. This is different language in tech startup that you may not experience in like manufacturing within your region, right? And so you you specifically solving those problems and then delivering differently by building your entire service model around how startups operate. So we know typically a startup might be digital first. A tech startup might be digital first. They're very fast moving. They're integrated with tools. And maybe your agency. I like to think about Agency Revolution's Forge 3 website and the Fuse products fit really well here, because if you're leveraging maybe video proposals for a tech startup versus, hey, come into the office, let's have a one-on-one meeting. Well, they may prefer, and not all CEOs, but a tech startup CEO may prefer a video proposal that they can watch at their own time when they're available, when they have the space to actually think through everything and prepare questions to respond back, right? Video proposals are a great solution for that. The client service
You're meeting
center.
them where they are, like
Mhm.
where they prefer to be or how they prefer to, consume
Interact.
information. I agree with you. And what Danny's talking about, video proposals, that's part of our Forge website platform. And it's basically your ability to record videos that are then hosted on your website, but they're
Sorry.
fully branded, with your agency. And they could be secure, password protected, or you can take off the password protection and post them on social, for example. But I agree with you there. That's actually a really great point that you made, that, when you're talking tech startup, right, the way that they want to communicate with the agency may change.
Hmm.
They might want to, text you
Yeah.
information and receive, that communication back via text because that's easy and convenient. They might want to use video, like you mentioned, to explain more complex things because they're probably looking for highest efficient effective way to communicate because they don't have time. They're a
Yeah.
startup, right? So that's kind of what you need to think about.
Yeah. And so they care. I imagine they care about, and I'm not an expert in tech startup, but I imagine that they care about their coverage. They care about risk management, but they're quick moving and they care about efficiency, as you mentioned, right? So
Yeah. And
having
they
that
probably also have a
combined.
higher aptitude. Sorry, Danny, I think I'm a little behind. They also probably have a higher tolerance for risk too.
Sure,
So, like,
sure.
so that's part of the analysis that you need
Yeah,
to
yeah,
make too.
yeah, right. And so creating a service model, a business model that really services that high tech experience is one way to really not just attract them to you, but to keep them, to retain them long term, right? And so um, the other thing is the way that they would communicate, the way that you would communicate as an agency. So this specialization of how you communicate your specialization across all your marketing and messaging, being maybe it's being present where the startups are, speaking that startup language, sharing insights specifically to tech founders around risk and insurance and things of that sort. And so designing a website, your website should be attracting that ideal client, a CEO or a CFO of a tech startup. What does that website need to look like? Does it have web chat? Using the features and tools that you have behind the scenes in the website, like the client service portal, like email automations, things of that sort, right? Not necessarily automations, but the ability to communicate via email on a service timeline in a quick and an efficient way. And so your business model would look different if you're attracting tech startups than if you're attracting, and I use manufacturing firms a lot because in Ohio we have a lot of manufacturing and they're less tech savvy and they like the one-on-one meetings and they like the in-person coffee and they like when we bring donuts, right? And so that's a different experience that you're providing within your how you deliver within your product model to be a part of their industry in a sense, to speak their language, to make them feel comfortable working with you. And so that's really how I see a brand strategy example working. Now, granted, there's so much more that goes into this. There's positioning and messaging and the point of views that you establish for that particular ideal client, narrowing in the ideal client. So it's geographically, it's industry specific, it could be revenue specific, all of these things, all of these pieces that you want to really fill in the gaps on to build a complete brand strategy. But these are like uh, ultimately the four categories to really focus on when building out that strategy. And then the whole goal here is to create that meaningful differentiation. So if that were your strategy, then before a tech startup really reaches out, they should know that through your brand efforts, you understand their world, you speak their language, you work the way that they work, and you can solve their specific problems. Okay, and then this means that you start attracting this specific client, they refer you to others in their network, and you become really the choice. They value your specialization, they see you as a trusted resource, and they're willing to pay for specialization. They're not shopping on price, they're not leaving at renewal. They value you because you understand their unique problems, their industry, their specialization as well. And you speak that language, and all of your marketing and messaging and everything communicates that to them. Okay?
And I think it's easier to market when you have such a focused approach because you know exactly who you're trying to get through your marketing, whatever that is, right? Whether
Right.
it's paid advertising, whether it's traditional advertising, whether it's conferences you're attending, whatever strategy you're using to get in front of these folks, knowing exactly who they are and what, floats their boat, so to speak, and what they care about, it makes it easier for you to actually get in front of them
Mm-hmm.
because you have answers to those questions and you can be a lot more focused and targeted with those with
100%.
those initiatives.
And that actually leads us right into the next section of like, okay, I have my brand foundation in place. Now I have to build a plan to actually execute this. And that goes into the marketing planning, or I call it strategic planning because it doesn't always have to fall into the marketing department necessarily. It could fall into the sales department, or a lot of agencies don't have a marketing department. So it could fall into operations and sales and kind of spread out a little bit. But yeah, exactly. You take that brand foundation that you've built and now you put it into an action plan and to execute it. Because some people get through the strategy work, and I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but they'll get through the strategy work and then it just kind of sits on a deck, on a shelf, right? And it doesn't
Mhm.
actually live out. So let's say that you mapped out those key points for your brand strategy. You know who you serve. So you have your target market personas, the problems that you solve. Maybe you did some market analysis, some competitive differentiation there, how you deliver that product or service like differently, right? And so that's positioning and point of views and thought leadership maybe. And then an idea on how you'll communicate that to the market, and that comes down to the brand design. This is really just an exercise where you kind of, I'd say, like, spend some time. I think you'll get the slide deck after this presentation. Spend some time like building out those buckets, because that's going to set you up for success when you get into the planning piece of it. Okay.
And I'm excited about that for our registrants and attendees because like you will actually have a tangible thing to work through from
Yeah.
Dani that she uses to work with her clients,
Yes.
after this webinar. So this, you're not walking away with just this theory, you're walking away with an actual something to do
Yes.
next.
Yes. So that's what I call the brand activation playbook, where you're actually delivering on the brand strategy. And so what I feel, this is exactly what I feel most valuable about strategic planning, is having the execution plan in place. You're going to get um, this this template. It's actually going to come in the form of a Google Doc and also a PDF version. So if you're not a fan of Google Docs, then you can use the PDF version. It also has AI prompts built into it as well. So if you get stuck
Which
somewhere,
is my favorite part, Dani. Dani impressed me so much because she actually has AI prompts built out for you to use in ChatGPT, which is incredible.
yeah,
That's really smart.
yeah. And so you can use those prompts in any AI platform that you use, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini. I tend to lean into Claude the most, but it'll
Okay.
only get you like 60, 70% there. And I know you're seeing this everywhere, but it's so true. You have to apply the human touch to this. Like, you cannot just have AI build your plan and you go do it. I like every plan that I've analyzed by going through using AI to help me come up with ideas. I can never use that plan. It will never work if you just use AI. Currently, now I'm not saying 5 years from now, AI may have mastered it, maybe, but you have to apply the human touch to it. But yes, every step will have an AI prompt link that you can click on, and it'll give you the whole prompt. You'll fill in the brackets, and that'll get you, like I said, about 60, 70% there to get you kind of moving and started. But before I give you the link to download that, I want to make sure you understand how to use it. So again, this piece will come after you build the brand strategy, after you go through kind of the 4 buckets that we just talked about. So let's go into an example here. I had this all like the animation set up, and at like 12:25 I just took everything off because it was like so distracting. So there's some animation, there's some not.
That's
Here's
okay.
how it kind of lays out though. You're first gonna identify a goal. And again, my numbers are gonna be a little bit arbitrary here because I've never niched for tech startups with insurance. Like, that's just not my focus. So the numbers might be a little bit shaky or arbitrary, but you'll be able to kind of keep finessing those to get them the way that you need them for your business, and then also the way that are actually practical for your business too. So let's just say this is a departmental niche of niching down to tech startup clients, right? And maybe the brand goal, so the company goal, is to drive $150,000 in new revenue just specifically from tech startups. Then I break it down into, well, if that's the company goal, then the marketing goal could be to establish the agency as the go-to insurance advisor for seed to Series B tech startups. If that's the marketing goal, then you come up with 3 metrics to help you measure your success to achieving that marketing goal. And so the three key results that we would be looking at is to build a high volume startup pipeline, to scale the lead generation system by improving conversion or getting 50% of the pipeline to move from introductions to possible opportunities, and to optimize that sales conversion program by closing maybe 50 of the 150 introductions or possible opportunities that we had there, right? And so you'll see we have this like funnel approach, but this is where we're getting really more tactical. It's like, all right, we know we're targeting tech startups. We know there's other areas that we need to work on the business to make sure that our business model is set up to service tech startups and all of these things. Now we're ready to start actually driving in business and converting this business. And so that's when we get really practical with the goals and the key results. And then we move into the tactics. So for every key result, and you'll have this is like a one page. Is it a one page? I can't remember if it's a one page, but it's one or two pages that you'll be able to fill out. So it's not like you're creating this 15-page document.
Mhm. It's
But
meant to be
it's
easy and
when
doable. It's meant to be easy and doable.
exactly, it's meant to be easy and doable. So once you nail out your key results, these are the measurable things that you want to accomplish in order to achieve the marketing goal, which sets you up to achieve the company goal. Then you set tactics for each key result. Okay? And tactics essentially are the bets that you're making based on what your agency can handle, what your skills and strengths are within the producers within that agency, what your marketing team can handle. And so you're making bets to say, like, here are the tactical things that I think we need to do that we can do to help us achieve key result number one. And so you list those out there. This is all around building partnerships with VCs, VC portfolio companies, accelerators, right? And so if your agency has some reputation with tech startups already or has relationships with VC portfolio companies or accelerators, how do you scale those relationships and create more partnerships and relationships with more because they have access to your ideal client and you want to get in front of that'll give you more opportunity to get in front of that ideal client. Now, if you're not an agency that tends to focus on relationships and partnerships with bigger organizations, maybe it's this whole tactic section would be shifted to reaching out directly to the tech startup CEOs and cold pitching, cold emailing, different hosting webinars, driving traffic, and like the whole strategy would be different. So you want to make sure that the tactics you're choosing align with the strengths and skill sets of your agency and what your agency is capable of doing. Okay? So yes, in order to generate 300 qualified introductions from tech startups, partners, these would be the tactics that we would approach and it would be a partnership focus. If we focused on key result number 2, which is converting 50% of those introductions into serious sales opportunities, then here's the tactics that we would implement for key result number 2. Okay? And so that's automated email sequences, content, thought leadership type content. Here I have like a tech startup risk guide. And how do you get that in front of these people? Through email campaigns, automations,
Yeah.
ads.
You
Um,
can build out a landing page, that
mhm.
speaks directly to this audience and then build those elements into that landing page, right? So
Yes,
you could have a gated, some sort of download of the tech startup risk guide, and you could promote that via your email marketing campaign that you put together and via social. And you could
yes.
even run paid ads on LinkedIn targeting those exact, job titles within that industry.
100%. That's exactly it. Now, and again, Monica's speaking about things that she's like, yeah, because agency, I could see agency revolution. This is how we would approach something like that if
Hmm.
this were our target market. Well, they have the skill sets and the strengths to run LinkedIn ads. They have the skill set and strengths to create the landing pages, right? And so, you want to make sure that you have the tools. I always the reason I'm saying this is because I see a lot of agencies launch things like because they think it's the right thing to do, like put up a landing page, but then they have no traffic going to the landing page because they don't know how to drive the traffic to the landing
So
page.
then it's not successful and it's
So
the
then it's
landing
like a
page.
waste
Yeah.
of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so really leaning on your resources, your tools, the other vendors that you partner with. And so
Yeah.
Agency Revolution being one of them that I partner with quite a bit. When I'm working with independent insurance agencies, I tend to be the one that's also communicating with Agency Revolution's Forge 3 platform.
And we're your favorite, right, Dani? I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that we say that out loud. Just
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah. No, and
But
it's
we are.
true. It's true because like we have a relationship. Like
Yes.
you know exactly how I work.
Dani knows how to call
And
me. Dani knows
I,
Dani knows my number and my email in case
yeah.
she runs into anything.
Yeah, and I'll say what I've loved about working with Agency Revolution and specific to like something like this is if I want a landing page done, I want to write the copy for it. I don't want the Forge 3 team writing the copy for it because they don't know the problem as well as I know the problem, right? But I need the Forge 3 team to help me develop the landing page because I want it to live on the website and I want the hyperlink to be right and I want it to rank, right? And so that's how we work together is like you come up for in this particular example, you come up with the copy, you know the problems that you solve best, you know your ideal client best, and you can create the communication materials that you need, and you lean on your vendors and your partners to help drive the traffic or to help launch the page or so on, right?
Mhm.
And so um, that's I'm kind of moving towards the communication, but yeah, that's exactly how that could work. Okay.
Mhm.
And then the third one being that key result of closing 50 new startup clients. Well, what does that need to look like? Maybe you create that video proposal system and you put a process in place as to how you show them their personalized coverage recommendations through video. You send it to them in a link. They can watch at their own time. You have a follow up sequence that, if you don't hear back from them, what does that look like? Developing objection handling playbook, creating case studies from startups that you've had success with. There's so many different tactics there to help close the 50 that you need to close to help you achieve the marketing goal and the company goal, the brand goal. Okay. And again, that's just, and now I'm like getting tactical in the weeds, but that's just an example of how you can start building out and mapping out that plan based on the foundation of the strategy. Okay, so you set the company goal, you come up with key results that point to the goals so that you have something measurable to track, and then you build your tactics from those key results. And when you get this document, you'll also have like an implementation plan after it at the end that puts it into like a timeline of sorts. And it gives you an AI prompt of saying, like, here's everything, here's all the tactics that I want to do. Help me spread this out across 9 months, or help me spread this out across 12 months. What are the steps that I need to take for each one? And AI can do actually a pretty good job at that. So,
Which is so nice because that makes it a lot more manageable.
yeah.
But what I also love about, and I know you said like now I'm getting in the weeds and getting really tactical, but what I love about this is, you can take this example that you've just given us and apply it to really anything, any
Mm-hmm.
industry, any strategy focus that you want to pursue, and seeing the examples of the tactics and like how you wrote this out. I'm a kind of person that I hate doing anything from scratch. I like to look at an example of something and sort of replicate it, duplicate it, just by changing certain things out. So this helps me tremendously because like it
Good.
gives you an idea of what exactly you're supposed to say in those tactics, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
versus just sitting there trying to figure it out from scratch.
By
That
yourself.
feels a lot more complicated. So
Yeah, yeah. And so if you do use the Google Doc version um, of that template that we're going to share, if you use the Google Doc version, then you'll be able to make duplicate copies. So if you have different niches, again, you don't want to like go overboard, but if you have two or three niches and you want to create a plan for each one, you'd be able to do that on a template, which is nice too.
that's awesome.
Okay, and then the last thing, and I'll kind of fly through this a little bit, is then now you're focused on, okay, what communication pieces do we need to focus on to really bring that brand to life? We have the brand strategy foundation in place. We have the execution plan in place. What are some of the collateral and the materials? And so I like to look at the communication pillars as like three categories almost. So we have brand identity. That's finally where like what does our logo communicate to this ideal client? Now, obviously, if you're niching in departmentally, then maybe, making a logo, redoing the logo specific to one niche doesn't make sense. But if you are very much focused in one direction on tech startups and that's the only focus that you have for your agency, then yes, you would want to redo the logo, the fonts, the colors, the web design, all of the design elements and everything. And you'd also be looking at your brand voice and your messaging. So, creating master messaging, coming up with your value propositions, what type of tone of voice and writing style do you need? What are the different point of views and things of that sort? And then also, my favorite, which is the brand story piece, is like really narrowing in on the story and how it connects to the ideal client. So, the founder story, the brand story, your team, internal team and culture story, your client success stories, impact stories, things of that sort. But these come down to like how we're communicating the brand foundation and in strategy to the ideal client that we have. And so, obviously, various different communication channels to choose from to distribute that messaging, positioning, and brand identity and design. One being the website, right? So, like your homepage, your service pages, your about page, having landing pages with case studies or testimonials, all the different tools that you bake into that website is a great place. Email marketing is a great place to communicate there. I know through their Fuse product, there's a ton of email automations that you can run, whether it's prospecting or service based email automations, but that kind of helps reinforce when you're writing out an email campaign or email automation sequence and you have your brand voice and your messaging and all of that kind of built out, it helps keep that consistent across all of the emails that are coming through, whether they're going through clients or prospects. So another great distribution channel for communication is social media, we know, across our social media channels, and then in the sales materials as well. So once you have the pieces in place, the brand strategy foundation, once you have an action plan in mind, you can then move into those communication pieces of what does the design need to look and feel like? What does the messaging need to look and feel like? What should the copy say? And you'll be way more successful with spending time in those materials because you have this base and foundation to go off of. So
Yeah.
that's the goal. That's the goal of that is don't jump to the flyer until you have these pieces baked in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I lied about not making another sales pitch because I'm going to just take this opportunity since Danny set me up for a layup. But I want to make an actual point here. So in terms of our Forge website and our Fuse automated marketing platform, we actually include a lot of content already built into the platform. And that can serve as your starting point. You can kind of tweak from there and really customize and really make it feel and look like your own, which is what Danny alluded to a little earlier. Like she's working with one of our clients now and helping them through you've already worked with them on their brand strategy, and now you're sort of infusing that into the website that we're building for you guys. So it's easier because you have a starting point. You have a well-built platform, great foundation, and now you can kind of tweak it from there to personalize it and customize it to your agency. So just wanted to give us a shout out, but that's it.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Maybe
so true.
maybe this is my last sales pitch. I don't
It's so true.
know.
No, it's good. I can't believe how quickly this hour went.
I know it was very
Um,
quick.
okay, so we'll come full circle to say basically, brand when we view brand as just logos, fonts, colors, we maintain this surface level view that leaves agencies on competing on price, I'd say, and like kind of at that bottom of the graph that I showed. But what we've shared today is really like a strategy system. So you build the whole system and you run the activation playbook that you're going to get in a second. And you have all of the different ways to communicate your strategy to the market. Those are the agencies that I see winning today. Is they're making intentional choices about who they serve. They're also making very big sacrifices on who they don't serve so that they can focus on the people that they serve. They're solving specific problems in the market. Their delivery system is completely differentiated, specific for their clients, and they're executing that strategy very consistently. So that's kind of the message I want to hit home today is brand is not just a look. Brand is a whole complete system. If you want to stand out in the market, you go through the process and go through the steps of building that complete system out, and then putting it into action, which is here where you can download I call it the brand activation playbook. And I think, again, you'll get a copy of these slides, but you'll be able to click here to download it. You can scan that QR code, download it, or you can go to the link there. And like I said, it'll come in the form of a Google Doc or a PDF, and it'll come. You'll be able to click on either one to get to that. So
And just in case some of you don't know how to do the QR code scanner, you open your camera up on your phone and you kind of like position it in front of the little, the QR code, and it'll pop up a little link that you can tap on your phone, and that'll bring you to the page that Dani is talking about. So, I mean, you could write down the link too, but that's the easier way, is using the
yeah,
QR code. Thanks again for joining. We appreciate you joining us, and hopefully you did learn a lot. And we'll see you soon. We'll see you on the
all
next
right.
webinar. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.